Concrete pastures.
And so the first thing that happened to the film was then actually that Kenya sent it to the awards race as the entry for Best International Film. That was last year. So we look for stories that we can tell so that we help change the world a little bit. We are like 100% Generation Y.
Nice.
It was all coming of age, and the majority of these coming of age stories were stories on child marriage from girls who had either gone through it or had siblings or relatives go through it, themselves stuck in fishing nets, and the boat was leaking and one was constantly trying to get the water out. Like
Gosh.
three people were trying to get the water out of the boat while the others were trying to cut those fishing nets.
Hello, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I am Nancy Mwasisi. Oh my God, today I am so excited. I'm so honored to have the co-director of an amazing, amazing movie. We are diving into a powerful and potentially sensitive topic. Our focus today is NAWI, a compelling film that tells a story about a determined young girl in rural Kenya. Sold by her father for livestock, she escapes her impending marriage to fight for her dream of attending high school. Today, again, like I said, I'm with the co-director, Kevin. Kevin, welcome to the
Hello,
show. And I'm
thank
so honored to have you. And
you. Thanks for having me.
you for being here. Oh my God. So as you know, behind the scenes, I've watched the movie. I watched it with my kids. And the fact that my daughter is 11, that movie, geez. I actually was in tears by the time the movie ended. And I'm trying not to give it away so much because I would love for people to go to Angel and watch it. Angel, guys, it's like Netflix, but this is amazing. They have powerful stories on Angel, and Nawi is the movie that we're discussing. And Kevin, for starters, just introduce yourself and your role to that movie.
Yeah, so I'm Kevin. My last name is Schmutzler, which is very German and hard to
Mm,
pronounce. I am a writer, director, producer who is focusing on impactful stories. So I work with my brother, usually, who was also co-directing on NAWI, and we do impact films. So we look for stories that we can tell so that we help change the world a little bit. We are like 100% Generation Y.
nice.
Always asking this question of, well, okay, why don't we do something useful to society? Why aren't we doctors or something? Yeah, and then at some point during the end of our university time, we said, okay, let's actually storytelling is also very powerful. So
Mhm.
let's try to use what we're good at and create some good in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely the movie now we tells an impactful story and shares a powerful message, which I believe the world needs to know. And some of the rituals or whatever practices, culture practices that are still happening, I believe they need to be eradicated because there's so many young girls out there with dreams, and their dreams are just being crushed. So hence you are here. Um, so the co-writer, Micah,
Milka, the writer, yeah. Milka
Micah,
Charity.
yes. How did you collaborate with her to authentically capture the emotional realities around child marriage in Turkana community?
So we did not only collaborate with her on the story side, we also collaborated with two local young female filmmakers to
Mm,
direct the film, because obviously we are European white men and we're tapping into a very sensitive topic, telling the story of a Black African girl. so it was always clear that this is not a one or two man show in making this film. It was always clear, okay, it's going to be a team effort. And before I actually answer that very specific question, I think I need to go one step further back
Yes.
and try to explain how this project came to be and how we actually got involved in the project, because we were not necessarily the starting point of it. We had made a film in Cape Town where my brother finished university, and then after, and this was also an impact film, and after that, an NGO program from northern Kenya, from the Turkana region, reached out to us saying, "Hey, you guys just did this film in South Africa. We have an education program for young people in the Turkana region, especially girls, and would you want to do a workshop on filmmaking here?" Because they back then had a new TV station that had opened, and the thought was, hey, if people know how to do films, they could work for TV and they could like get jobs and create an income. And that was 2017, so 9 years ago. We started to work in northern Kenya, and we did workshops and shot some short films. And at one point, the NGO that we were working with and for, they call themselves Learning Lions, and are like really an amazing institution, not only active in the field of film, but also in everything that can be worked on remotely, like coding or web design or general design of things. They have like international volunteers doing projects with local talents, and
Wow.
then they try to get the products to travel internationally, and that's what this film is actually doing. So we hosted a writing competition, not only in Kenya but also Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and we're just looking for stories that, with these people that we had trained in our workshops, we said, okay, let's do a nice short film.
Yes.
And then we got a couple of hundred submissions. It was quite successful. And although the topic of this competition was very broad, we were just asking about stories about the future of Africa. I s- I swear, like 70% or 75% of these stories were coming of age stories, without asking for coming of age stories, because the NGO, as they are also doing like coding and all these tech kind of education programs, they were thinking, okay, maybe we get some nice Turkana desert sci-fi
Hmm.
stories, but no, it was all coming of age, and the majority of these coming of age stories were stories on child marriage from girls who had either gone through it or had siblings or relatives go through it. And one of those stories like stood out in the way that it was crafted, that it was written, and that was the story that then became NAWI, because there was just so much there. It was beautifully written. It's obviously a very heavy story and a very sad story, because it's a story on child marriage, and the nature of the topic brings it with it that it's heavy. Um, but there was so much there that everyone sat there and was like, okay, that's not a short film, that's actually a feature. Um, yeah, and that's how we met Milka, and she's just a gorgeous powerhouse woman. We sat down and had a writer's room in northern Kenya, in Turkana. And so everyone who's watching like Turkana, that means, oh, I'm always bad with Celsius and Fahrenheit, but that means like 105 Fahrenheit every day, no AC, like just the brutal heat. And we were sitting there with Milka, and then obviously the most talented women from the workshops that we had done, and were kind of translating that story into a feature script, and bit by bit. And then my and my brother's role was more to say, okay, this could be like a climax, and this is obviously an introduction, and then we have a gap here. What else could be happening? So we were trying to ensure we make something that works from a point of storytelling for an international audience, while everything that touches the actual scenes is input and scenes that came like from local talent. And that's, I think, what made this project so special and so natural and so authentic, that we were actually able to combine expertise and ideas and creativity from different backgrounds and different worlds, and try to work towards something that works, that touches a lot of people emotionally, not only internationally but also locally. um, because we kind of continued that path and said, okay, this actually worked very well, this collaboration, this writers room. Let's also do that on set. Let's not be just some people who come and make a movie in a region. Let's just, throughout every department, find local talent. For most of them, it's the first film, so you cannot expect it to be perfect. So let's find a mentor or a counterpart from from either Nairobi or Europe, to teach them on the go and to work with them, collaborate with them, and by that try to create a story that resonates locally and internationally, as I said.
Oh my God, you've answered half my questions, but
Sorry, it was so long.
you've answered half my questions, but I just love the fact that you were able to incorporate Kenyans into that movie and have them tell their own story in that way. And that's what was very, very impressive. I mean, kudos to Michelle and Joelle. I was just like, oh my God, the talent, the confidence that came out of that screen.
Yeah.
How did you pick these kids?
Well, that was uh, a long process and a tough process, because chronologically, we at some point we had this script and we said, hey, that's actually a very compelling script, but it will depend 100% on who is going to play that girl. Because once you watch the film, you will know the audience, but
Yeah.
it's a film about this girl, and she and the lead character called Nawi, who was then performed by a young lady called Michelle Lemuya, named after Michelle Obama, obviously. Um, and so we knew, okay, it's crucial. This casting decision will decide whether we'll have a good film, or whether we'll have a really strong film that has the ability to travel and thus to create this impact that we're wanting to create. And so we had long discussions on whether we try to cast internationally or whether we are going to cast in Nairobi. And then in the end, everyone was on the same page, but especially Brizan, our Kenyan producer, was rooting for it heavily to say, hey, we need someone from here. We need someone who doesn't need to act. We need someone who knows what's happening
Yes.
and who can just be one of those girls. And so what we did was we went to all schools in the county, and also in the neighboring counties, Mazabit, Pokot, and so on. Like we just went to school after school after school and did open castings, and whoever wanted to audition for either the leading part or the part of Joel, who plays the brother, and who was then also actually in real life. We found someone who's called Joel.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it was easy for him actually.
yes, yes, yes.
But whoever wanted to audition, they could, and then we did recalls and so on, and we found Michelle at a school in a town called Lodwar, which is basically the last town in northern Kenya before this desert that stretches up to South Sudan and Ethiopia starts.
Wow.
And when we first met her, she was 11. um, yeah, so she was 11, and she was super good from the first round. And at every school where we had potential candidates, we would also afterwards obviously sit down with them and talk them through, okay, this is what we want to make, and this is why we want to make it, and this is why we think it's important, and so on. So imagine like a group of people, one or two Europeans among them, and a couple of grown-up Kenyans in their 20s and 30s sit across, maybe a teacher and two or three girls from that are between 10 and 12, 13 years old, and explain, okay, this we're going to make this film about child marriage. And your role would be the lead actress who gets sold into marriage by their family, by the father. And so Michelle was 11, as I said, and she just looked at me and said, "Yeah, Kevin, I know this last year my two best friends have been married off." And yeah, and you just sit there, and it's hard to react in that moment and to believe what you've just heard, because she's just so innocent. She's an 11-year-old child telling her best friends who are the same age have been married off in the past couple of months. And so she was so confident about knowing what's going on, and so grown up in how she was reflecting on everything, that it was just incredible. And then we had a couple of more rounds of casting. But then luckily, we had in the end two very strong girls. And then we had an acting coach from Nairobi who was trained in New York. So again, he had like this international bridge and appeal to him, and he was training the kids, the two girls and Joel, for a while, and then we decided, okay, let's go with Michelle. She has everything that we are looking for and brings just this special something to every scene.
Listen, the confidence and how she tells the story. I mean, a script is a script, but to bring that to life and how she brings it to life at the maturity that's coming out of her, together with Joel, and I mean the whole cast. I'm picking the kids because it's just, I think, a little bit harder to work with the kids compared to the older actors and actresses. Because I can't imagine how you guys had to navigate that with the kids. How was it filming with the kids once the move you started we started shooting? How was that navigating with kids?
So first of all, being four directors on a film also make things easy,
Oh
because you have
God.
so much capacity. No, like we in our directing, we just said, okay, we're this directing team, and we had discussed a lot about responsibilities and how every scene would be shaped and so on. And then for different scenes, different people would have different responsibilities. And maybe when it comes to scenes with the kids, for example, my brother, who has an acting background, would work a lot with them, and Valentine Cheloget, one of the two women. So she already had worked with kids in Nairobi before a
Mhm.
lot of times, because she had done one short film and done an assistant directing job before on another television show. So she was quite the experienced part of our Kenyan co-directors, and so she and Toby would work a lot with the girls, including with the kids, including rehearsals and so on, and we all just, it's so easy to work with Michelle, because she just understands everything from scratch. After we had cast the kids, we said, okay, let's, for the father, the mother, like the supporting cast that kind of immediate is directly around those kids. Let's find uh, professionals from Nairobi. So in case it gets tricky in the scenes, then then the kids have someone they can lean on to, in terms of pacing, in terms of how big does it get, or how discreet is something acted out. But after like 2 days, 3 days of shooting, everyone was just leaning on Michelle, because she has this talent to perfectly feel what a scene needs, and then to just deliver on point. And for example, so there is a scene in the film or a couple of scenes that play on a very remote island. So this island is, so imagine the landscape. There is a desert, but in this desert, there's the biggest desert lake of the world, the so-called Lake Turkana, which has a north-south shore of over 250 miles. So it's just gigantic. And in that lake, there's this one island called the Isle of Man, where only fishermen and male orphans live and fish. And that means we have like a few dozens of boys on that island and a handful or two handful of men. And they just appear to live very peacefully in this super remote place where there's nothing. A few years back, when we had come to the island for the first time back in 2017 or 18, there was still a school on the island, and there was a mission that was sending a teacher, and they had classes and everything, but through climate change and floodings and so on, this has all been destroyed. So right now on this island, there's nothing, just boys. There are no females on this island, and we needed to go there to shoot. And so most of the female crews said we cannot go there. It's not possible for us. We just can't do it. First, we also don't want to cross the lake, and also this is the man's island. We just don't go there. And so it was very few females that were with us, and obviously Michelle was acting in a couple of scenes on that island with all those boys around her.
Yeah.
And then, as it is in these locations, like you have a limited amount of time, you have like 20, 30, 40 kids as extras that have never acted before. So it's just so complicated to shoot. Everything is so rough. And then, but still, you have to get the scenes, and then you have to kind of see that you make it back to the shore while there's still daylight. Because when we had the location trip to the location scouting trip, pre-shoot and hard prep, we did not manage to get back in time, and then we stranded. Like we got ourselves stuck in fishing nets, and the boat was leaking, and one was constantly trying to get the water
Oh
out. Like
God.
three people were trying to get the water out of the boat while the others were trying to cut those fishing nets and to get our, how do you call the thing
The
that
other
drives,
thing to go around.
yeah,
I don't even know the name of
like
it.
the engine with the
Yes.
to cut it free from the fishing net. So we had made like very bad experiences with this lake a couple of months before. And so we said, okay, we need to leave at sunset because we need to get back because there's just no light. You cannot see anything. And but then as it happens, you're in the middle of shooting, everyone's excited. You feel like, oh, this is like a great energy. Everything is going so well. And but we're losing light, but no matter what, it's just so good at the moment. We had like, I mean, you remember the scenes, that's a real sunset. It's like the craziest sunset I have ever witnessed in my entire life. And I've seen a lot of beautiful sunsets because that's one of the perks of being a filmmaker. You're getting to go to a lot of cool places and enjoy a lot of cool sunrises and sunsets.
Yes. Nice.
So this one was so special. And then we had this scene where Michelle and one of the fishing boys are talking, and they are having a very mature scene. In a beautiful surrounding, and the boy naturally took him some takes because everyone around him was he sensed, okay, there's a timing issue, and then he didn't get his lines across, and there was always some hiccups, and I think he needed like 12 takes or something until we got his close up. And then Michelle just needed one. And she knew because for her it was shooting day number 40 or something. So she knew what was on the game. She knew what kind of pressure there was around her, even though no one, obviously everyone tries to play it cool and tries to not have them notice that we're freaking out. inside and like we have to get it done. But she knew, obviously knew it because she knew us by then perfectly well. And then she just needs one take and everyone's like, okay, yeah, you have time for a second one. Um, and that's just so special about her that no matter what, she was always on point.
Wow. That's the reason why I'm asking because of that same island and it's so many kids and incorporating kids. I have two and sometimes to manage both of them is just I can't imagine having that many, but kudos to you guys for managing those kids. They were a powerful addition to the movie itself. So I can't imagine the reception you are receiving from Kenya, especially from Turkana tribe. Um, what is the reception you are receiving? Is everybody great with the movie, the message that you are sending? Um,
And so there are like a couple of sides to this. So first, when we made the film, we were not entirely sure what the Kenyan government and censorship would say.
mhm.
So we actually saw the risk that it might get banned in Kenya. But then actually the opposite happened. And before the film was even finished, the Kenyan Film Commission got a hand on a screener link. I don't even know, still, I don't know where that came from. And then they reached out saying, hey, if you would want to submit this for our Oscar selection, we would encourage you to actually do that. And so the first thing that happened to the film was then actually that Kenya sent it to the awards race as the entry for Best International Film. That was last year. So not for this Oscars, but for the one year ago. So that was great. That was crazy, and that was the political side of reception in Kenya, seeing that actually officials are getting behind the film. We had a couple of politicians and even like the governor of Turkana attend the premiere in Nairobi and so on. So that was great. And then obviously, as I've said before, one of the things that we knew is crucial to the film was it has to work locally. Because we cannot say we are impact filmmakers and then the audience where the impact needs to happen is not happy with the film. So we were quite nervous before we had like the first screenings in Lodwar and also with some of the nomads and the in the communities. But I have to say that the general reception was very, very positive, or is very, very positive. Of course, there are always a couple of men, and especially among the elders who are defending tradition and who are not eager to start discussions.
Yes.
But even they respond in a very respectful way of, I see your point and I accept that you have that standpoint because it's valid to have. So what we are actually doing is we have a partnership with no, okay, I have to do one step broader again. So we have started something that we call the NAWI initiative, which is a network, I would say, out of international NGOs and grassroots organizations. And we are trying to, well, basically enable grassroots organizations to fight forced marriage by finding international organizations who send them money for whatever they need in the fields of education, rescue, and prevention. And so and that's actually going very great because we had the release of the film in March. And since then, we are already over 2 million US dollars in donations from NGO and private individuals to those grassroots organizations. So
That's
that's
amazing.
that's why we
That's
started this
huge.
whole thing. Um, And so one of the projects that we're doing is in partnership with Girls First Fund, who are a Seattle-based organization, and they have enabled us to come up with a mobile desert cinema. So we have like a big 4x4 and a screen and a projector and a sound system and chairs. And as soon as we find more money, we'll add like a popcorn machine. And we are actually like going into the village. Not me, obviously, again, because this would send the wrong message. But
Yes.
um, Milka and Brizan and others from the team go into the villages with counselors, show the film, like do a film screening, and then start discussions. And that is a super powerful tool because after each of those screenings, we have men who are coming up afterwards saying, okay, I'm not going to marry an underage girl. Like we have men in their 20s saying, I've understood what this is about. I'm not gonna enter in such a marriage. Or we have fathers who come to us saying, hey, I have married off my first daughter, but be sure my other two are safe now. So we are actually feeling that this is hands-on impact that is happening. It can always get bigger, obviously, because there's so many communities that this movie can be shown to, and if we at some point are hopefully able to translate it into local languages, it will be even more impactful and can also travel even deeper into the communities. But yeah, it's something that is happening full steam ahead, and we are actually like we're super happy and also a bit proud that it is happening. Yeah.
Listen, I'm so happy to hear that because I think the more the message is spread out, because it's not only Kenya where this is happening, and this is why I actually wanted you to come on because our community also, I had a guest, she's from Kenya. She also was spoke about it just a little bit. It was actually behind the scene, me and her spoke about it. And when I saw now, it reminded me of her. I was like, oh my God. I need to bring him on because I'm sure she's going to be very happy to see that there's a message out there being spread around the world that this needs to stop. Because there's so many young girls. Because I looked at my own daughter, she's 11. I'm like, how is this even possible? And oh my God, and you do such an amazing job in the movie on how it actually happens, like capturing that whole thing. And this is why I'll continue to praise uh, the the actors with how they brought the script to life. And I'm just so grateful that it's out there. Uh, I mean, filming in such a remote um, area. What challenges did you guys face? I mean, you've shared some on the island, but I'm sure there's more.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting because obviously the mission of this project is so strong, and normally most of the talks have a very strict time frame. So I always get to talk about the serious things and the message, and then there's rarely any time left to dive into the filmmaking fun parts of like
Oh
adventure
no, we got
adventure
time.
filmmaking. So that's why I'm laughing. There is like it was crazy because so Turkana is an area like even before we started when we did like all these workshops and so on, everyone was saying, okay, this like there's never been a film shot in Turkana. There have been maybe like a day or a couple of days where a crew would travel there and do some B unit shots or do some scenes. Um, but that someone would go there and shoot an entire feature film, that has just not happened, and not even on a Kenyan level.
Wow.
Um, and so that was that was the setup. That means there is no roads, there is no water supply, especially except for our base, which was the facility of the NGO. So they have their base, they call it a campus because it's basically kind of a university teaching young people skills. So they call it the campus, and this campus, they have found water, like an underwater reservoir in the middle of this desert, and that's why they are located where they are located, which is funnily uh, more or less exactly where Wakanda sits in the Marvel universe, which is
Oh,
also this future tech hub. So there, it's actually kind of funny. And so this was our base. There we slept there. Obviously, they have like a cantina kind of structure there for the young people, the students.
yeah.
It's not like we imagine a cantina. It's more like I mean, it's very remote. So there's rice and lentils and beans maybe, and that's it. Um, and so, but that was the base. We had water there. We had electricity, the solar there to charge equipment and so on. But for every location that you go to, you have to carry the water for the whole crew. You have to, if you need electricity, it's all generators uh, or batteries, but these are obviously very limited in terms of capacity. And so the main village where Nawi is living, we have actually built that roughly half a mile away from the NGO campus, because obviously it's we were discussing a lot, and it's just not doable to rent a space because where would the people go? You cannot just rent someone's home for a month, and because there's no hotel or some or infrastructure whatsoever. So we figured out the best way to actually do it is to build it, and these are all straw huts, and some, let's say, metal, tin kind of shacks, but they are easy to build. And especially the locals, they know how to build them. There are very strict rules. Only the women can work with straw. Only the men are supposed to work with tin. Um, and also, no one like we had to comply to that. Actually, yeah. Even though we always said, but it's not real. It's just a set. But no, it was real in that sense. And so we built that main village so that for maybe a quarter or a third of the scenes were somewhere in that village. So it was easy for us to get there because we could just walk or shuttle people from the base.
Mm.
Uh, and also for lunch and so on, go back to camp because it's always tricky. Like if you have everything takes forever. If you have to take lunch somewhere, someone will have a flat tire and the lunch won't come. It's just the destiny of those projects. And so it was rough. Production did like the hell of an amazing job to overcome all those obstacles and impossibilities. Um, yeah, and then we just had a very cool crew because like I was probably one of the oldest people, or not probably, I was probably the oldest person on set, um, or at least among the three eldest person, eldest people. I don't know English, but
It's okay, me too.
but and everyone from the region, I mean, they were all so young and so passionate, and so there was just so much drive because everyone would also know why it's done. And so we shot for 50 days, 50, which for a feature film is a lot. Um, but there was actually no way that we could have done it faster because every step you take is in the sand. It's constantly super hot. Everything just needs a bit of time, or this bit of extra time compared to when you shoot in a city infrastructure. But yeah, it was still a time that I look back to very happily because we were a very cool crew. And yes, the nights were short, and and I lost, I don't know, 15 kilograms. I don't know what that in pound is. A lot. I was only bones and skin when I got back. Um,
God. Oh my
but
God.
it was it it's something you will never forget, right? So
Listen, the powerful message that you guys are showcasing, and you wouldn't even tell the challenges that you guys face. It's up until I went to watch behind the scenes, and I'm looking at that river. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah, we had spring floods. We had
Wait, is that real? For real?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We had spring floods. We had so there is also the spring flood scene in the film,
Yes.
and we didn't even really put a lot of that in the making of because well, we're shooting with a child and we're shooting a spring flood in a real spring flood, so it's kind of a gray zone, but it was crazy because that day it was one of the last shooting days, and we still needed to capture the spring flood scene, and then we had a very smart plan. Like the DP, he's one or like one of we had a Kenyan female DP from Nairobi because again female perspective, and then a DP from Germany that we had worked with since university, who we trust a lot.
Mm.
And so he and me were in charge of that spring flood scene visually, and we had like a very good plan. We spent days figuring out how to fake that scene. And then when we wanted to go to the location, which would have been like a very shallow uh, kind of river, not even a river, like a ankle deep.
Passes through or something.
Yeah, it's just basically a puddle.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we couldn't go there because there was rain in the mountain overnight and there was a spring flood in our way. Um, and a valley that we had always like crossed by car was suddenly a river that was literally 300-meter wide. Like it was so huge. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and then we decided we obviously tested it for safety and everything, and then did a lot of testings, and then decided, okay, let's shoot the scene here. And then actually it was a lot of fun. Like,
No, it
uh,
was impressive. When I saw behind the scenes, because at first when I saw in the movie, I'm like, wait. Um, and then when I saw behind the scenes, I was like, wow, this is actually for real. So
yeah.
I couldn't. And then how was the night shooting?
Well, the nights are always tricky because of kids at night. Obviously, there are a lot of things
Tired.
you want to take care of, and yeah. So
And
the
then is
nights
it
are
pitch
the nights
black?
are short. Sorry,
Isn't it pitch black?
it's black. Yeah, it's black as hell. We have a lot of cool stars. So we had a different camera setup for night shoots, because the tech guys and girls, they knew it's gonna be like that. So we had like a day setup and a night setup. And then, I mean, we did have two generators and we did have some lights. So so one of the generators would usually break, and then there would be one left, and that would be just enough to kind of make it work. And also we brought a lot of smaller lamps that run on batteries, to be kind of equipped for those scenarios. But yeah, for example, we had a night shoot at a church. Like you have to imagine, there's nothing in this whole area. There's nothing. There are straw huts, um, maybe some shops where you can buy a Coke or something, and then out of nothing, there is a church that could be placed in Spain or in Tuscany. And that is because the Christian church is actually very active in the region. Since over 30 years, there's a Spanish missionary,
Oh, wow.
Spanish mission, who is doing actually a lot of good work in the region in terms of educational supply, water supply, food supply, and so on. And over the time, they have built some beautiful churches in
Wow.
the desert. And so at one of those churches in a very small town called Nachukui, we had a couple of scenes and a couple of scenes also at night. And that was tough because it's not our home turf. It's like 1.5 hours away. So we would sleep at the mission actually. So you're out of the routine setup. Then both generators went down during the night. So we were only left with lamps that depend on batteries, and obviously then relighting takes longer, and then the breaks between the takes get longer because the generator is down. So you have to try to reconstruct what you had, but with less light. And so that's why like this night it felt like a forever night. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, in the end we pulled it off. There are definitely shooting days that are more fun and that are less fun. The nights in general, for my personal taste, always, I don't have a problem with nights, but I feel like after three, between 3 and 5, normally in a crew, there's always like a
Yeah. The
downtime.
morale goes. Because
Yes,
everybody's tired, especially when it's hot like that.
yes, yes. But
Yeah.
yeah, in the end, people took turns and uh, it came together nicely. And the church is just visually in the film, it's just amazing.
Wow. Can you share a moment during production that deeply affected you and changed your understanding of the story?
Well, definitely the moment that I've already mentioned when an 11-year-old girl tells you that her two best friends have been married off in the last 12 months, because even though I was familiar with the region and everything, and we had done a lot of research and we had worked there, and I've basically been back and forth since, I don't know, like 7 years, by 6, 7 years by then. And you know it's happening because you research and you sit there and you put the script together, and then still that's a reality, all of a sudden it's reality. And it's not someone who says, yes, this has happened in the past, and I have a relative where 15 years ago, or maybe even 2 years ago, this has happened, but it's like a kid telling you, my best friend has been married and she was 11. And it could have been me, actually. I'm just lucky at the moment that my parents are both literate and they both went to school. And my mother is also working, and so I'm not directly threatened by it, but it could have been me. Um, and that's crazy. And that's also something very valuable that these projects give you, because they those moments make it clear what kind of privileges we have growing up in North America, growing up in Europe, and that this is not a given, but it's also a responsibility. Um, and this is also why we do the job, because that feels like, okay, that's the right, we have we are privileged, we have the ability to travel and to get to accumulate knowledge on certain matters that are unjust, and then try to do what is in our power, and provide a platform for local people to tell their story, and basically in our case help translate it into something that people internationally can also understand.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, what's next? What are you working on?
I am actually going back to Turkana in 5 weeks, like mid-July, um, as I'm working on a documentary, we're starting to work on a documentary, which is going to be set in the Kakuma refugee camp.
Oh my my goodness.
Yeah, so a part of our crew, so this camp Kakuma, probably very few of you will have heard of it. Kakuma translates into nowhere, and it's a refugee camp where officially 250,000 people live. Unofficially, it's maybe double, and it's very close to the region where we shot NAWI. And a part of the crew that we were working with, especially on the camera side of things, they were coming out of the camp because there's also a film training program in the camp. And when we were looking for young crew from Turkana who would want to join, because we still had open positions, we found some very talented guys and girls in that camp who then joined our shoot, and we obviously started talking. Um, and also our Kenyan producer, Brizan, or the lead producer in Kenya, Brizan, he also went to school in Kakuma a couple of years ago, and that's how we got in touch with the camp. And so, what's fascinating, or our approach, how we're gonna look at it, or at this topic of displacement and migration, is gonna be through the lens of sport. Because in Kakuma, there are over 50 football, like for you guys, soccer, for me, football.
Oh no,
Uh,
soccer too. I'm from Zambia. Come on.
there are over fifty football teams in this camp, and they are having their own Kakuma Premier League,
Oh
where
wow.
they play a championship and they play also tournaments. And I think that is a very interesting field to explore because we have 250,000 plus X people without passport. Each of them has a story that that is probably a film on its own. So the past is full of trauma. The present is a dead end, and the future unforeseeable. But for most, like it's not something that is temporary. It's something where people are born, and it's something where people die. So, and in that circumstances and in that surrounding, to still find the joy to do sports and to look at sports as this also beacon of hope that might get one or the other out there, because that's what's happening. Like, people are getting out of there because they are talented, and to use that as an entry point and then find the human stories within the population. That's what we're gonna try. And yeah, we have a we have the NAWI core team, but we have some very exciting talents that we're working with on that one, including Moses Bwayo, the Ugandan director who was Oscar nominated for Bobby Wine, the People's President.
Nice.
So he's with us on this one to bring even more local perspective and also professional local perspective into the story and everything. And yeah, that's going to be super exciting. We're going mid-July to finalize casting and everything. And yeah, then it counts.
Listen, that is amazing. I've done a lot of interviews with refugees around the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, but I've actually done also, Concrete Passions did a donation for kids in a camp in Kenya, actually.
Oh,
And we were able to buy some books because the kids were learning off the floor. Like they would learn and they'll be writing on the floor.
yeah.
And that broke my heart to see one of the teachers, the one that I interviewed, and he expressed how when he's teaching them, when he comes back from school, the kids in the camp that are not going to school, he's teaching them and they're writing on the ground. So we would have to get them some books. So some people were kind enough to donate that are attached to Concrete Passions podcast. And
Nice.
I'm so happy that you are doing. I can't wait to see the documentary and see I've highlighted a lot of refugees, and it's an ongoing journey for me to get to understand how you survive from being displaced and just getting, again, like you said, the human story out of that. Because there's so much that goes on into someone's life, and having to capture that. So that's exciting. I'm so
Yeah.
happy. It's very, very powerful. What advice would you give to young filmmakers aspiring to get into the, inspirational, impactful stories?
Yeah, look for the stories that move you personally, because if they don't touch you, how will you be able to translate it into something that touches others?
Yeah.
And then find a core crew you get along with very nicely, because filmmaking or is always there are always moments that are tough, and so you need to be like no one can make a film alone. I mean, maybe with AI.
We need
Soon,
the human touch. We need
soon
the
I
human
can
touch.
abandon all my principles and I can just make it on my laptop. No,
You
uh,
know?
like you always need this group of believers in a project, um, and that's the foundation of everything. If there's like shared values and a shared goal, then a project will always come together and it will always fly.
Yeah, no, listen, thank you so, so much for this project. I love what you guys have done and the message that you are sending to all of us. I was deeply touched. And these are the type of stories that I gravitate towards, and a lot of people gravitate towards, especially on Concrete Pastures community. We want inspiring stories, message stories, and you've done well with NAWI.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been an honor, and I can't wait for the documentary, honestly.
Yeah.
And hopefully
Unfortunately,
we
my
can have you
experience
back and share.
unfortunately, my experience tells me that gonna take a while.
Oh, I'm sure. But that's what makes it beautiful, the
Yeah.
experience and everything. And then by the time you see the full picture, it's just like, oh my God, this was well worth it. And from the reaction of myself, my kids, I mean, I'm sure the Concrete Pastures community would love this movie. I encourage everybody. The movie is called NAWI. It's on Angel Guide. It's down, just download the app on your phones. You can watch it and let's support this movie. The message is powerful. Young kids should not be getting married to older men at the young age. Let's give our children bigger dreams than marriage.